By the time we got to 1994, all the ones that went to the Final Four in 91 were gone. But because we hadn't had any success in the NCAA tournament the previous 2 years, all of a sudden now the pressure was on.
Losing to North Carolina at Rutgers that year to end our season, it was devastating. I just remember how lousy that felt.
They just beat us up physically. They were stronger than us. They were mentally stronger. They just crushed us. And I can remember that being like this sort of crushing defeat that really fueled us all summer.
I think getting to the Final Eight that year kind of reintroduced us to the world. And that set everything up for the national championship game the following year, the whole season.
UConn has won the national championship. 39-0, Connecticut is perfect. Number 7 for the UConn Huskies. 89 consecutive wins, more than anyone in college basketball Division I history.
The dynasty fulfills its destiny.
Win number 1,000.
Coming off the 94 season where we lost a heartbreaker against UNC to go to the Final Four, we entered the next season with very high expectations. Part of that reason is because we were bringing in a freshman, Nikisha Sales, who was going to give us that big guard that we were missing on the perimeter.
Nikisha is the original Precious.
Yes, Nikisha's nickname was Precious, and yes, it's because Geno never yelled at her. He still continued to yell at me, and especially Kara and Jen, and pretty much everybody except for Nikisha.
Yeah, that's what they say, right? But here's the reason why. She was a freshman, so she didn't know any better. The other guys have been there for a while, and they should know better. So whenever they did something stupid, I got really mad at them. You know, Nikisha was a freshman. She didn't have the luxury of knowing.
He said that was because you guys should know better. You were older. She just...
Which is fair, but he yelled at me a lot my freshman year. So it's not like he doesn't yell at freshmen. He yells at freshmen.
Plus, Nikisha was better than all of them. That's why they were jealous. So they can say all they want, but that was the bottom line. She was better than all of them, and so they should just be quiet and be happy.
Simply put, it doesn't get any better than this in college basketball. A sellout crowd, top-ranked Tennessee and number 2 Connecticut.
It's a game that we'll always remember. I hope somebody makes a 3 at the buzzer to win it. And I really don't care which way it goes, just because that's the kind of game I want to be in today.
The ESPN people approached me and said, do you want to play a game on Martin Luther King Day? And I said, sure. And they were looking for an opponent, and I want to say Tennessee may have been the third opponent that they approached, because the first couple said no, for whatever reason, which I don't understand. Then they was like, well, we're going to ask Tennessee, are you okay with that? I said, absolutely.
Playing Tennessee in 1995 was the pinnacle, right? They were the standard to which we were all trying to reach. The type of personality we had was like, bring it on. Like, we want to play the best.
They were big and they pressed. It was a measuring stick at that point, like how far had we come and could we compete with the best? Probably one of the most amazing experiences I've had as a coach, just that environment.
First really, really packed, overpacked house, I think.
And I'll never forget how loud the building was, that Geno was standing 2 feet from me on the bench. I'm sitting down in my seat. He's standing 2 feet from me and he's trying to talk. And I can't hear what he's saying. I'm like, gee, what are you saying? Like, turn and look at me. Like, I had to read his lips. This building was electric. It was so loud. Couldn't hear a thing.
Not only was every seat filled, but the energy in the crowd was next level. I also remember getting into foul trouble, which seemed to be my theme against Tennessee.
I still got the field house in my head. I still got like 12 fans. Were others receiving votes was cool.
Quickly to Berube. That is their largest lead of the game.
Now they're holding the poll for us. ESPN is televising the game. It's 1-2. This is Tennessee, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening.
Jen Rosati, the big 3. She has 15 points.
This game is going to be big. If they're able to pull this out, this will cement in their minds the fact that they belong here.
The game was really close and went down to the last minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
It will be official later in the day. Connecticut, #1 for the first time in school history. undefeated, the previously unbeaten Tennessee Lady Vols.
We had to beg people to leave. I remember a half hour, 45 minutes after the game, no one wanted to leave. Nothing was the same after that for UConn basketball. Nothing.
Connecticut will go to 24-0 on the season. 103-56 in the final regular season home game for the UConn Huskies. And with the victory, they clinch the Big East regular season championship.
What will you remember most about this night?
The fact that we won the Big East championship on our home court, our last regular season game, and it's just unbelievable. Look at all these people.
We were getting a ton of attention that year because we were undefeated. That hadn't been done since 1986. As we were approaching the NCAA tournament, the coaches did a great job of keeping us really focused on the moment, on the day, whether it was a practice or a game, and then got swept up in all of it. You know, the amazing game here against Virginia in the regional final.
You know, I had been at UVA, obviously, and now they came up and we're playing them in the Final 8 game, and we're down at halftime. And Jen and Jamel really took over the locker room at that point, and then when we came back out, you know, we win the game.
And the dream season continues for the top-ranked and still undefeated team in the country, the Connecticut Huskies.
We wanted the kids to enjoy it, but it was really important that we didn't make just getting there the goal, because that's what we kind of did in '91. We were sort of just happy to be there, and we missed an opportunity. So with this one, the object is to win.
And so here we are playing Stanford in the semifinals going, all right, this is Stanford. And we played as well as we could play. I remember Kara played great, and we beat them pretty good.
And Kara was incredible that game, and we ended up winning by 30 or something like that.
Kara had a monster performance in that we beat them really handily, which was super gratifying because they had beaten us my sophomore year, I think my freshman year as well.
The final score, UConn 87 and Stanford 60.
Then even after the game, the Stanford coach said, I don't think they were going to beat Tennessee. Now, can you imagine that? Like, we just beat your team by 30 and you think we're going to lose tomorrow. Like, what? That shows a little lack of respect that people have for us. Or for me, anyway. That might have been personal.
And then, of course, the next day at noon, the national championship game. I remember I wasn't able to sleep much the night before. Against Tennessee again. I remember that Jen was furious during warm-ups because they were stretching on our side of the court.
They were trying to intimidate us, and there wasn't going to be any intimidating Jamel or Jen.
So we came out to do our warm-up, and they were stretching around the center court circle. So half their team, as you can imagine, was sitting on our half of the court. So I kindly asked them to move, and they wouldn't. So I went over to the scores table and I said, you need to get them off our side of the court. Those were the kinds of things that I would use to like rally our team. Like, they don't even respect us. They're sitting on our side of the court like they own it. My team knew that I would get them off our side of the court, and I did.
And we have a foul underneath. That is the third on Rebecca Lobo with 12:50 to play in the first half. Geno's going to have to get her out of there.
Remember being in foul trouble at halftime, but Coach Roema basically coming in and saying, you know, we're down 6, and some of our key pieces barely got to play that first half because of foul trouble. And then the second half just being personally felt like kind of in a zone where things were working for me.
It was like the moment she was made for, right? It was, I'm the national player of the year, and I'm going to put the team on my back and make sure we win.
And then I distinctly remember, you know, being at the free throw line, looking up at the scoreboard, realizing in my head, they can't win this game. Tennessee, is mathematically impossible for them to win this game. And then sort of the euphoria of all of it after that.
And Jen was spectacular. Jamel was spectacular. Nikisha played point guard for the first time in her life, and we're national champions. And it was the craziest day of our lives.
And I remember Rebecca running around, and the coaches, Tanya, Megan, Patterson, and myself, just hugging. And I wore my lucky green dress. It never let me down.
Hold your head up high. This is our time. Together we will rise, step into the light. We were born to come alive. Hold your head up high. This is our time.
Rebecca took that program from, yeah, we made the Final Four, to a national powerhouse. Regardless of how well she played in that national championship game, how great she was as a leader and a person is what makes her a UConn legend.
I mean, this is just a picture-perfect way of someone to end their career. We're undefeated, we're national champions, and I did it with people I love.
Winning a national championship changes a lot. It opens doors from a recruiting perspective that we just didn't have before that. So when you open up the entire country, it's like your eyes get real big, and it forced us to have to remember what got us there. If we're gonna go all the way to California or to Oklahoma, they had to be the same kinds of kids that fit Connecticut, that wanted to play for coach, that were unselfish. We recruited 2 kids from Oklahoma, Stacey Hansmeyer and Paige Sauer, and that was a big help. They were 2 post players. And then the following class, we were able to bring in 5 players: Sue Bird, Kirsten Walters, Asia Jones, Swin Cash, and Tamika Williams. It was probably the first large class that we brought in that the players were highly ranked. And we were really excited about what we thought the possibilities could be that following year.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Standard, brought to you by UConn Health, helping keep the best men's and women's basketball players on the court through my 40 years here. So, let our doctors be your doctors, and you can have the same success.